Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to another HuMEL session. Thank you for joining us this morning or afternoon, wherever you are in our fine planet. My name is Mike Wilcox, and I am a monitoring and evaluation specialist with the IDEAL team. I think we're all acquainted with the ins and outs of Zoom, but as a reminder, please remember to mute your microphone when you are not speaking. If your internet connection allows, turn on your camera if you so choose to. The meeting is being recorded to share with our colleagues who are not able to make it. So we will send out a link to the meeting recording. If you have any questions at any point during the meeting, feel free to send a message to me or anyone else with IDEAL in their name. Each HuMEL has a different topic of focus, and today's meeting will be promoting locally led meal in emergencies, strategies, and approaches based on local contexts. And we will be hearing from colleagues at CRS, Caritas Antilles and Brazil, and the International Medical Corps. Now, I would like to show you just a brief overview of our panel. We have Carlos Garafulich. He is the Meal and Information Management Technical Advisor for the Empower project at Catholic Relief Services. We have Cynthia Fontenelle. She is the Program Manager at Caritas Antilles. Welton Leal, the National Meal Coordinator at Caritas Brazil. And we have Emra sorry, Emra, I screwed up your name again. It's Kuchokoskan. He is the meal coordinator on the emergency response team for Poland, Moldova at the International Medical Corps. So that is our speaker overview. So now we will get into our first panelist, Carlos Garafulich from Catholic Relief Services. Take it away, Carlos.
Thank you very much, Will, and thank you very much for the invitation to IDEAL. It's an honor to present a little bit the experience and the learnings from the empowering partners working on emergency responses program from CRS. So how Empower started? Next one, please. In 2017 and 2018, CRS took the decision to reduce their operational presence in the region, in the Caribbean and in South America, right? But at the same time, in 2017, just the Caribbean had 5 hurricanes, 3 of them being Category 5. So a little bit on the humanitarian response department, we start to think about how we can fulfill our mandate on this particular context. So we start thinking about relying more on leading local partners, but who can receive technical advisory from CRS to respond, right? Next one, please. What needs we are trying to fulfill in Empower? So first, a reality is that local ownership of humanitarian programming is just the key for achieve sustainability, right? But also we saw that there are critical capacity strengthening needs of local organizations to respond in emergencies, and also that we have insufficient funding going directly to local and national responders, right? Next one, please. So how Empower works, basically. We sign a memorandum of understanding with local partners. It's important. It's a memorandum of understanding. It's not a funding agreement, right? And then in Empower, we have developed some capacity assessment tools and technical capacity assessment tools. So the partners choose which one of them to apply, right? That serves as a baseline for our program. But next, with those findings, CRS and the partners develop a capacity strengthening plan, right? And with that, we start working together to fulfill that plan. So with those self-identified needs, they began to support requests in many areas. One of them is meal, right? And with that request, we start working with them with in-country and remote accompaniment process. And also it becomes like in an ongoing technical assistance and capacity building in this partnership. More or less 1 year, 1.5 years after that, we do some evaluations, qualitative evaluations, like to check how this partnership is going. And at the end of each Empower phase, we carried out again these end-line self-assessments, like to check a little bit of the improvement in the program by them, right? Next one, please. One area that it's always a need, self-identified need, it's monitoring and evaluation. As you can see in this graph, monitoring and evaluation, basically, it's it's the most TDY area that we gave to the partners since Empower started, right? Next one, please. And what kind of support we give in HuMEL for the partners? Basically, whatever they ask for, from proposal designs, fulfillment for donor requirements, even HuMEL human resources advice on job descriptions, etc. Right? And next one, please. But for my part of the side, what is more important of what I feel I do with them is that we try to enhance the more HuMEL organizational culture in the institution, right? And as a consequence, that gives more data-driven decision making in their projects and also in their institution, right? And also, I have to say that local partners have a history implementing a lot of projects, right? So they have a lot of learnings, they have a lot of in the field action and experience, right? So what I think we do a lot is that we help them to create their own HuMEL methodologies so they can start to systematize better this knowledge and to apply it on the field with these learnings. Next one, please. How we work a little bit on Empower, I would say that it's more or less similar to a consultancy, but a consultancy that builds with the local partner the final product they are asking for, but putting a lot of importance in the process of building that product, right? Because it's a lot of learning by doing. So it's a constant dialogue with them. So we build together, we analyze together their possible solutions for what they need, and also we ended learning together about this process. Next one, please. So I want to share some main learnings on this path. Next one, please. The first one is that I have worked in other capacity strengthening programs, but I think this one is a little bit different because it's more on a partnership program, I guess, than a capacity strengthening. It's more focused in partnership. Why? Because the nature of Empower is based on this memorandum of understanding and is not attached to a traditional funded life cycle projects, right? And I think that enforces more horizontal relations between us, because we don't have this relation of donor and grantee, right? And also, this memorandum of understanding allow us to work in Empower with them, but in a more intertemporal period, right? That is not attached to project that maybe it's just for 2 years and puts a lot of pressure on the results and the way we have to present this path of strengthening. Next one, please. So I think this one it's a challenge that we have like avoided that challenge of donor and grantee relations sometimes. The other one is that we do training, but after that we do a lot of mentoring and accompaniment. So we have changed the perspective for measuring trainings. Like, okay, let's wait how the partners replicate this training. That is the most easiest way, like to try to measure our results. We have changed that, and we are trying like to have this more applied knowledge acquiring the training after we have these sessions. And after these trainings, we really do a lot work with them. So it's a lot of learning by doing on the field or remotely with them, right? And also, I would say that we have a great advantage. Some donors have trusted in this approach. Also, CRS have some funds for rapid response funds that are very, there are small projects for and short period project, like 3-4 months, but we use these experiences with them so they can pilot new approaches, new sectors to intervene, to apply new tools, etc. So they can start learning these approaches in these small projects, so they can have the experience to apply them after in bigger funding and projects, larger projects. They can scale it more easily in that way. Next one, please. Also, what has been our learning? It's they need okay, no, it's we are changing a little bit our traditional view of strengthening local partners. No, my perception sometimes is that some of these programs maybe think that to strengthen a local partner means that they adopt our way of doing things, right? And in Empower, we are avoiding that stuff. We try to understand the partner actual mid-term and long-term capacities, priorities, their path or their thinking about sustainability before making any recommendations around systems or tools, right? And that implies also to understand better their finance, or to work with another with another TA that are helping them in protection, safeguarding, etc. Right? So we really need to understand their institutional approach so we can do this recommendation. And we build together, partners at us, specific solutions for their needs and realities, right? Next one, please. And also attached is this time frame, for this capacity strengthening. So we don't expect significant changes in 1 year. In general, the first year, it's a lot about knowing each other, to understand how the program works with them, what kind of technical advisory we can give them in meal, etc. And it takes a little bit to build that trust. It takes a little bit of time. But after that, and that's why it's important, like, to outline this plan and make 2 little baby steps, like to keep growing this process of capacity strengthening, right? But when they understand the program and we begin to do little things together, one unexpected result that we have had is that the more we strengthen a partner in an area, and in meal it's very obvious, they begin to request more more help in their process, and they have more complex requests to those. So has been very challenging because it keeps us learning a lot on how to give them that help, right? So it feels a little bit it's a never-ending process of helping, but in more complex ways. Next one, please. So one important thing is to lead them so they can lead their own process, right? So what we have learned a lot is that if they have the need of improvement, this is going to work better. We don't have to, or we don't want, and we don't have to impose requirement, policies, procedures, tools. Their own need is going to guide them on what they can need and to apply on this matter and in the areas they have, right? So they lead their own process, they understand their contexts, their capacities, and their priorities. So we are just for them, providing the support they need and they request from them from us, right? Next one, please. And sorry, I'm running, but I have only 10 minutes, right? But what are the main conclusions we've had in these 3-year programs that we have been building? First, that we put the partners at the center of all the decision making. All the process is about dialogue. And if we have any doubts, we consult with them. We keep making questions about the path we are having together. The other one is to flip the paradigm, right? It's to change this power dynamic that sometimes we have from a donor-grantee relationship to one to a technical support service from quality programming. So we work with them if they ask for. And the third one is this program is very built on the relationship, right? So it takes a little bit of time to do it. So we have to build a lot of trust with them and to be very transparent, have a lot of mutual respect about the knowledge of both organizational knowledge, right, and experiences, and always to make this collective decision making and have a lot of patience and understanding between each other. So Basically, I think I passed 1 minute for my 10 minutes. But this is Empower, and now you're going to hear a little bit more, but from the partners' voices.
Carlos, thank you very much. We do have a number of questions, though. I want to take about 5 minutes so we can cover these. Let's try to start at the top. We have a question from Carlos Javier. Was there any capacity development activity with local regional government structure on malfunctions?
No, Empower was thinking more on we need to work with national organizations, and because we are part of the church, we decided to work principally with Caritas Nacionales of the countries, right? So we haven't worked with government, but it's important to say we are strengthening them because they are national organizations, so they can reply this with other organizations, or maybe to work with governmental authorities, right? But our main approach is to work with them so they can, in the near future, to do our job nationally.
Thanks, Carlos. Carlos, Allison Long asked, the three main areas for support were data-driven decision-making, developing meal systems, and what was the third one? Do you remember?
Yes, it's to help them to systematize their knowledge. Always, they have a lot of knowledge. Sometimes they are all the time on the field. They have a lot of years of experience, but maybe because this focus on the field and in the constant action of doing projects, I think sometimes they lack a little bit on this methodology of systematize that knowledge. So we help them a lot to do that, right?
Great. Carlos Javier also asked, how were malfunctions institutionalized within local organizations?
I think each institution have their own process of institutionalized mail. It's obviously that we at the beginning we start a lot with some staff and with some projects. But if you want to keep growing, the institution feels like they have to institutionalize the process and their staff, right? So, for example, if their project begins to grow a lot and they need to apply new data collection tools, sometimes they have to institutionalize it by indirect cost policies, right? Like to make this finance sustainability. So they are like institutionalizing this process in their own manner, basically, right? And it's attached to other areas as protection, safeguarding for FCRM, feedback mechanisms, indirect cost with finance. A lot has to do with cash vouchers or cash interventions with meals, so they have to do a lot on program quality, etc., right? So it's a very holistic approach.
Great. Susanna Shoki, sorry, Susanna. Where does the funding for your interventions come from when it is not linked to a project?
Yes, that's a great question. At the beginning, and it was CRS from their own funds to pilot the process, right? That was the first 2 years. After that, for the next 2 phases that we have, some donors have trust in this approach. And right now we have the Elma Foundation that is funding part of Empower, also a private donor for South America. And also this month we've started with BHA funding right now. But it's to Empower, right? Not to this memorandum of understanding and with the partners, etc. So it's a little bit difficult. It's a little bit different. Yeah.
Susanna also says, in the beginning, you said partners select assessment tools. What are these tools, and can they also propose their own tools?
Of course. Well, this is because we needed like to try to measure a little bit how the process is. So we, in the first phase, Empower built up a capacity assessment tool that was based a lot on the Caritas Internationales standard indicators. So we helped them on that. And from the next phase, we have developed some sectorial and technical capacity assessment tools that try to measure a little bit how they are on training experience, etc., on shelter, wash, protection and safeguarding, and others. And in this third phase, we are adding other 3, that it's meal, the process to get USG funds, and also disaster risk reduction. So we, with our technical advisors, we are start building these capacity assessments. But well, always we can receive like this feedback from the partners, right? And we everything we socialize with them, and we receive feedback for the next steps and for the next phases of Empower.
Great. Thank you, Carlos. And thank you, everyone, for the questions. Now we can move on to Cynthia's portion of the presentation. So now we have Cynthia Fontenelle from Caritas Antilles.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having Caritas on this HuMEL forum. Our experience with CRS Empower. CRS and Caritas Antilles has good synergy. We build and maintain productive relationships. We do mutual engagements. CA has a Youth Emergency Action Committee project, a DRR project, which we run in Jamaica, St. Lucia, Dominica, and Grenada. So if CRS Empower wants to engage any of these partners, we facilitate this process, as well as they facilitate our networking with other donors and other agencies. The team is very proactive, very engaging, I must say, very accessible to us, facilitates great networking with other donors and agencies. When we did the first intervention after the St. Vincent and Grenadines volcanic response, we did the first intervention with CRS Empower for the Elmer relief funds. And thereafter, we were able to do the second intervention. We did about 5 of it, the second with UNICEF, and all that was CRS Empower is very instrumental in us, you know, forming that partnership with UNICEF. So it's great learning and great knowledge sharing for us also. Next slide, please. How the program has responded to our needs. The meal training. I can go back to St. Vincent and the Grenadines. When we started the program, we had little knowledge of how to manage the meal component of it. Because as the program manager, I could give you my example. I designed templates for IPTTs and other templates for the YAC program, and even the MHPSS program in the Grand Bahamas. But when we did the emergency program in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, we thought we needed something different. We came to the realization that we needed some more information to do things differently. So there came CRS Empower, which assisted us in this regard. So they helped us with the survey instruments, with the training in COBO, with conducting the assessment, with FCRM, the onboarding of the staff, PSEA, for example, when we did that intervention, well, these interventions, that I think we did about 5 of them in St. Vincent and the Grenadines after the volcanic eruption, we realized our PSEA rating was not on par, not where it was supposed to be. And so CRS Empower really helped us, supported us in this regard. Also, the development of the concept notes and the proposal for the different intervention, they really helped us there also. Honestly, when we started and we did this program with UNICEF, we had 0 experience in procurement plans, and they assisted also. They deployed the staff, their staff, the technical advisors, to come on the ground in St. Vincent. I think we had someone from WASH, someone from CASH. So it was very beneficial to Caritas Antilles. Next slide, please. If we have to look at the strength, one would be to build the capacity of CA to have in-house personnel to carry out assessment, produce concept notes, proposal, produce monitoring and evaluation tools. And I could tell you, I mean, we could say we can do this without CRS Empower now, because they have built that, you know, capacity. So we're able to do it on our own right now. Empower CA to respond in a more extensive way. When we were doing the hygiene kits, we realized that we needed to follow the guidelines for the FAIR standards. And so we produced kits that was, you know, the benchmark for other actors on the ground. Person spoke about these kits. So it felt like we knew what we were doing with the guidance of CRS Empower, and we did it well. We were able to strengthen CA's relationship with financial service providers through the use of Visa debit cards for our multipurpose cash assistance, which was the first intervention we did in SVG, St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Visibility of CA has increased tremendously. Empower has broadened our network for future collaboration and networking with other partners. So for the first Elmer relief intervention, we went into doing 2 with UNICEF, one with Caribbean Disaster Philanthropy, with the development of peace. So our visibility was improved, was increased. Empowered CA to become more versatile. So like I think I mentioned earlier, we're now able to do wash interventions, produce our own IEC material, successfully carry out our post-distribution monitoring, and our campaigns, our hygiene promotion campaigns. Next slide, please. For us, we think that the process for receiving the funds can be a little too lengthy, especially when there's the need on the ground. In the case of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, I'm just using this as an example, just to get the funds on time to be able to deploy persons, you know, to start the intervention, because it's an emergency and the assistance is needed in real time. When we did that intervention also, it was operating in a COVID-19, well, we're still doing a way, but environment. So you find that although the interventions were successful, you find that, you know, some of the things that would have loved to do, the accompaniment was not, you know, always, was a bit lacking in some instances. We talk about needs assessment. Now, this has not anything per se to do with CRS Empower, but you would realize sometimes when you go into a country and a needs assessment is already done, you may realize that you don't meet the needs of the most vulnerable, because you find that every actor on the ground has a list, a distribution list, a beneficiary list. Not everyone is aiding or assisting those same persons, but through observation and communication, you realize that, you know, the needs of some persons are not being met. But it's just a general observation. Next slide, please. Okay, so one of the things we looked at is to train volunteers locally in country. So, because sometimes when you do the training for the PDM, it feels like it's a rush, because everything is a rush. It's a 3 months project, so you're just rushing through. So it will be good to, you know, have that extra time that you, because, you know, the local staff is the one that has to do the PDM, because maybe they understand the culture, you know, better, the dialect better. So it will be good to have more, the time to train more staff, like or the budget to do this also. And it will also be good to get all the documentation prior to the intervention, so it could be a smoother transition. I think that's it for me. I hope I didn't go too fast. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Cynthia. Okay, we're gonna take a little time, get to a few more questions here. Carlos, I think this is another question that's directed toward you. So we'll start with this again. How does the self-baseline and self-endline work?
Well, we have developed these capacity assessment tools and technical capacity assessment tools. So the partners choose which them to apply, and basically it's a self-perception capacity on how they do their processes in different areas, right? So when we sign up the memorandum of understanding, they choose which them to do because they have already some interest to strengthen, right, their areas. So we have this whole process of empower, and each empower phase ends. They redo these capacity assessment tools that are measured by some indicators from Caritas Internationalis and some indicators that we have like developed with our TAs. And then we measure the changes, right? And how they feel they have strengthened their processes in different areas. If it's a little bit on self-perception because we don't want to have this like auction kind of relationship, but also we have some other empower indicators about the TDYs that we do, the proposals we want with them, etc. But we do this analysis and we present it each phase. Yeah.
Great. This could be for you, Carlos, or Cynthia, I think. Michael Mpagi says, how are the knowledge sharing sessions managed and what key tools are used during the process? Cynthia or Carlos?
I didn't hear what was the
I'll repeat the question. How are the knowledge sharing sessions managed and what key tools are used during the process?
Okay, I don't know, Cynthia, you want to share your experience of how have been this knowledge process?
Okay, usually we speak to CRS or engage CRS into letting them know what we're looking at. And together we can come up with the tools needed to carry out the intervention. So it's a lot of engagement. Carlos, I don't know if you want to share anything there.
Yes, of course. Well, in almost every tool that we use, sometimes CRS, because of their expertise, they have built up different templates and tools for basically all the meal life cycle project, right? Also, our partner have some. So what we do is like to share what we have together and try to build in this ongoing process in a new template that it's that serves for them, right? So we may give them some proposals based on our experience, but they basically can do whatever they want with these new tools that they develop, and they prove it on the field, and then they are going to perfect them in all the process, right? And this is on the knowledge, and it's on other meal processes. And a lot of the knowledge, basically, we also we are trying like to generate these multi-partner meetings or some so they can share experiences and their knowledge between them. So for example, Caritas Brazil has helped I think Caritas Ecuador in some projects and that kind of stuff. So we do a lot like events where they can share knowledge on many areas. Meal is one of them.
Right. Thank you, Carlos. Cynthia, how did your organization choose the meal priorities it wanted to work on or improve?
Okay, first it was during the St. Vincent and the Grenadines response. That's when we realized that we needed a lot more done through engagement with CRS and Power, what was needed for the intervention. And this is how we went ahead and made the changes we needed.
Great, thank you. Ghazi Khan asks, is there any risk mitigation strategy for implementing projects through partners?
I don't understand completely the question. Can you like give more
Ghazi, if you're there, can you possibly elaborate on this question a bit?
Yes, Carlos. Thanks. The purpose that if we implement a project through a partner, so there should be a lot of risk involved, just in financial side, probably they will not be maintaining the documentation and the evidences. On implementation side, they will not be probably maintaining just like the community-based feedback and response mechanisms and the other things. So there is they will not be just like securing their data. So there are a lot of risks involved. So is there any proper risk mitigation strategies, just like plan A, plan B, plan C, for implementation through partners?
Okay. Okay, well, as I said, basically we signed this memorandum of understanding. So we share with them like the best practices on the field, but also we help them to develop their own practices on the field while they are implementing projects, right? And also it's important to say that there are many times that they are receiving the funding from their own donors, right? So the risk plan, it's a lot between them and their donors, right? So that process of how they are going to manage to store the data, etc., it's built for them, and they have to fulfill the requirements from their donors. We are just for them, like to help them to develop in a more quality managed stuff, right? I don't know if I explain myself very well.
Thank you, Carlos. Okay, a few more questions here. Cynthia, I think this is for you. Was any PSEA consideration included within your experiences? That is the prevention of sexual exploitation and abuse.
Yes, we did. With any donor, with any project, that has to come. That's important. It has to be part of the project. However, like I said early on, when we were doing the intervention in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and we came across one particular donor who would want it done, you would have to meet, I think it was 8 criteria. We had to meet these 8 criteria, and CRS Empower assisted in this regard. So it's always part of our interventions. It's necessary, but yes, it was.
Great, thank you. Also, Clara asks, are you seeing that the meal technical support can improve the needs assessment weakness that you mentioned?
Well, if you carry the needs assessment on your own without you going into a country where it's already done, then of course it can. But if it's in a situation, that's why I said it was a general observation. If you're going in and it's already there, there's nothing that the team can do about it. This is government policy or regulations. If it's already done, you work with it. So it was just a general observation. But if it's something that has to be done, yes, for sure, CRS Empower can assist in that regard.
Great, thank you. All right, thank you everyone for the questions. Now we'll be moving on to Wilton. Take it away, Wilton, from Caritas Brazil. Sorry.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. So my name is Wilton Leal. I'm working Caritas Brasileira. Is a part of Caritas in Brazil who work in connections with another regionals and local Caritas around the Brazil. So we have around 117 organizations affiliated in Caritas. So right now I am the MU coordinator who take care about some project in Caritas from Brazil. So next slide, please. Okay, so this is from Caritas. We are connected to Catholic Church in Brazil. We like to every day explain that because sometimes the people confused about the Caritas be an organization or governmental, but we have also connections with the Catholic Church. Next, please. So we have begun our relationship with CRS with Orinoco One, who was financed from outside, and then we are creating our relationships with MIL teams, and also creating all the system in MIL in Brazil, because here we have monetary evaluations system from Caritas, but so different from other countries, and also with CRS. So we have meetings and also workshops with people from CRS who came to Brazil to stay 1 month, sometimes 2 months with our team to teach how we can understand and apply also the MIL staffs, and also all the organizations with Caritas, because for us it's so different, this kind of things, and we also try to put the MIL systems in another project from Caritas. So we also have Ajuri One from another state, from Brazil. So Orinoco starts in Roraima with migrants, people from Venezuela. So Roraima is a state near to Venezuela and Guyana. And then we have Ajuri One, who started with indigenous communities from Amazonas, is a state from Brazil also, in Amazonia. And then we also have cooperation with CAFOR in Sud from Brazil. We also has the help from CRS to understand the system from Conquer, and also the MIL system. And then we have Orinoco 3 and Ajuri 2. So right now we are in second phase from Orinoco 3. In this phase, we have more states to work with CRS. Next, please. So the first thing that we have to learn, I mean, the hard stuff to understand with CRS team was to create QR codes. So we decided to create QR codes and made connections with ComCare to read some families. So we also create a card called Orinoco cards or Ajuri cards. With QR codes, we have all the information from some family and all the integrants in this family, and we can also see if this people has able to receive some hygiene kits, and also to participate in hygiene promotions, and also to get in our wash facilities. We have created some wash facilities in Brazil. In Roraima, we have, for example, 4 or right now 5 wash facilities to migrant people who are living in the street, and also to poor Brazilian people, indigenous people who have to came to big cities and urban areas. So to create this system with QR code was the first challenge that we have to face it with CRS together. So it was a really, really good experience. Next, please. So this is our feedback box. So we have created this feedback system with CRS to receive all the compliments and also problems with our project or the Caritas Brasileiras team. So we create this system with CRS help to understand how we getting better with your project, and also to understand the relationships with beneficiaries in Brazil and the cultural difference, and to understand how we can do a better work with cooperation from the migrants and also the people who are living in the streets. So this is an example that we create, and right now we are trying to put the feedback systems in other projects from Brazil. So we have an Ajuri project and also in Orinoco. But Orinoco right now are present in 5 states from Brazil, I mean, Roraima, Acre, Rondônia, Pará, and Piauí. Three of them are in the frontiers, near to another countries like Bolivia, Peru, Venezuela, and Guyana. So next, please. This is our card, Orinoco card, that has the QR code. Then, so we read this QR code with sister from Comcare that we learn with meals teams, national teams. So to take information for our families who are in a project. Next one, please. This is our kit washes, the new one. So we have made it kit washes, wash kits for several years, and Ajuri, and also in Orinoco project. So the first step of the project, we have a dual site helping to finance our project. Right now, we are working with PRM because we have some changes and our donors. So this is the new kit wash that we give to the people. So to take this kit wash, this watch kit, we have to read the QR code, the card, and also access the system, and also this complexity organizations and income care system, and also to understand the data from there. So we have the help from CRS to make this all. The next one, please. So, I mean, for us, the steps with CRS team is able to understand the indicators, because we have different indicator from site and also to PRM. So sometimes we are not able to understand how these indicators are working with us. I mean, to understand this kind of system for us is a new thing. So, I mean, from Caritas Brasileira, so the CRS helped us to understand how we can manage that and understand, and also to create good indicators to PRM or site. And we also have learned how to manage the field, I mean, with the feedback system, and also to social workers. So we have made a lot of workshops to do a better work in the field. And also we have to learn to monitor the indicators. So we used the first time the Excel to understand our data, and then we are putting this in Power BI system. And right now we are creating a Power BI online to put in Caritas website. I mean, so we want to share the real-time monitoring for our projects. So we are able to do that with CRS teams. So they help us, especially Hannah and Carlos right now are helping us to understand. So we have a lot of problems sometimes with that, especially with Power BI right now. Some issues that we have to fix. Next one. So this is our next steps. So we have right now the second phase is from Orinoco 3 and 5 states from Brazil. Right now we have like 25,000 migrants or Brazilian poor people who has access our project in Orinoco. And right now we are starting, I mean, we are in the middle of Uma project who has that has a project to help people who are hungry in the streets in Brazil. So we create also meal systems with CRS team to make the people go in and our places to take a food, and also read a card, and creating big and good data to understand, and also to formulate our indicators. So this is it. So we are trying to create a new project with another partners and donors to work in Amazon communities, and especially the indigenous one. So CRS is helping us to think about it and think of new projects in Brazil also. Next one. So I think is this. Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you, Welton. I saw a question from Susanna in the chat, but Carlos, I believe did you address that question? I believe you were responding to her, correct?
Yes, I can explain if anyone's wants, right? MEAL
Sure.
is one part of technical advisory, right? But something that is important is Empower doesn't give funds to the partner, right? Because we have a memorandum of understanding. We don't have like funding agreement. So what we do is that part of they request help to apply to grants. So we do a lot of work in proposal design. If we can and they have passed the pre-award service of USG fund, they can be the priming. So that's our main goal. And also we have TAs of finance that work with them in their finance part to indirect cost policies, etc., to make this sustainable. So as MEAL, I have to understand that I cannot recommend, for example, a very expensive license because it's going against their sustainability financially, right? So that was a little bit part of my comment of how to understand more holistically the partner and work with them and give them all the options, right? If we have to work with Excel, we work with Excel. If it's Cobo, if it's Comper, if it's Power BI, Tableau, etc. So we have to be very flexible on how they can and they want to work.
Great, thank you, Carlos. Okay, now we're going to move on to our final presenter, Emra Kuchukolskan from the International Medical Corps.
Good afternoon and good morning, everyone. My name is Emra and work as a MEAL coordinator in IMC Poland, but also cover Moldova, currently based in Warsaw now since the beginning of the April. Also worked in Turkey before, both establish and train local NGOs about MEAL systems. Well, first of all, thanks to HuMEL and Michael who invited us to make this event possible. Super excited to share my experience on partners capacity building relevant with the MEAL in different partner-led humanitarian emergencies. Well, first of all, when I arrived to Poland, I saw many similarities in the MEAL structures of civil society organizations between Polish, Moldovan, Syrian, and Turkish NGOs. Of course, now after the 11th year of the Syrian refugee crisis, I can definitely say that the relevant MEAL capacity of the local Syrian and Turkish NGOs increased significantly. Of course, with the know-how of the international NGOs and UN organizations. However, I can also say that like 11 years ago, Syrian and Turkish humanitarian actors were experiencing almost identical challenges which currently Polish and Moldovan NGOs are experiencing now in response to the Ukrainian refugee crisis. Next one, please. Yeah, thank you. So before directly going into challenges, I would like to talk about the important question of how to integrate relevant know-how to local NGOs. Well, actually, it's a really significant question to answer because I think basically it affects also the other steps that you plan to take while establishing MEAL mechanism of implementing partners. So imagine that like you arrive to country as INGO and or developmental organization, and you realize that there are civil society organizations, locals who are willing to respond, but basically mostly in the first use of each emergency response crisis, I can say this, you see that these NGOs are established with a couple of people, generally 3 or 4 people, very limited knowledge about MEAL. That's why I think the relevant methodological approach that you are going to choose will also affect the process of establishing soundful M&E mechanism. Well, of course, I'm sure everyone here started assessing the MEAL capacity of relevant actors, but also like sometimes you see there is nothing to assess too. That's why it's also super important to at budget also like the MEAL person in the relevant sub-budgets of the implementing partners, because generally they overlook this budget line. So, but sometimes you can be lucky that the partner already have a meal staff on board, which is rare, by the way. So basically, as you can see in this slide, there are 3 different approaches, like one-to-one coaching sessions with dedicated meal staff, group trainings with dedicated meal and AAP staff. By the way, it's really hard to find like a person who can work as AAP staff, and also like group trainings for program staff. I think I can say that first approach mostly fits the situations that we are experiencing in Ukrainian refugee response, and we already experience in Syria refugee crisis. Since relevant staff's capacity is generally very limited, or sometimes like no experience at all, which is very normal, of course. Also, like other 2 approaches are more applicable, I guess, in the second or like the 3rd year of this kind of emergency crisis, after we as international organizations invest on their capacity building activities. Also, I can definitely say that this is a significant investment to relevant person and or institution, since you dedicated at least 2 hours on a weekly basis. And this is only for one partner. So currently, for example, here we are dealing with like 7 local partners, and we dedicated like 2 hours weekly basis each of them. It's more like you spend more than a day, which means that you don't work like as a meal professional for your institution. You don't work like full 5 days. You just 4 days to to complete your task. So this is also another challenge. As a footnote, I think the for emergency responses, like the implementation period also shouldn't be less than 6 months. Otherwise, you cannot see any tangible results regarding, the improvement in their capacity, basically. Because we can just sometimes see that like some programs can only be for 3 months. Next slide, please. Yeah. So also would like to go over relevant capacity building activities, which should be, I guess, like the part of the meal capacity plan of one-to-one coaching sessions. This is what we do here. As you know, that there are also many assessment, Excel-based. Of course, I'm sure most of you use these assessments that aim to measure the personal and or institutional meal capacity. However, in addition to these quantitative assessments, I think it's also important to understand the relevant strengths and expectation of relevant person and institution that you support. I totally agree with Carlos about when he mentioned that like to trust building, definitely transparency is also super important. I think more important than like the Excel-based capacity building approaches. But let's say, after relevant assessment, what I can say, like, let's say, qualitative and quantitative, as you also see in the first slide, like I divided the relevant capacity building implementation into 2 parts. First one is introducing conventional tools. But when you go to partner with so today we are going to talk about like do a training about the conventional tools. Of course, they will ask, so what's that basically? And as you know that like conventional tools covers the main bones of the meal systems that I think in every single humanitarian or developmental project implementation. On the other hand, for me, for this is how I categorize actually non-conventional tools for like digitized semi-intelligent data collection, analysis, or interactive dashboarding systems. Of course, and then like, well, in the beginning, of course, like this kind of emergencies responses, especially if you work in war zones, where you work with the local NGOs. We first start with the basic conventional meal systems. Even if we start introducing with the basics, of course, we receive many questions A to Z, like the language of the indicators, how to measure them, how to use paper-based data collection tools, because sometimes when you work in the war zones, it cannot be that easy to use some digital tools because of the field realities. But we explain all of these issues that I mentioned in the one-to-one coaching sessions in weekly basis, sometimes I can say. Next slide, please. Yeah, I mean, the part Two is more for people who are, I guess, interested with digital tools. Well, currently I can say that like in here, basically Poland, like the basically in this response, not just Poland, I can say that like digital AAP systems are more trendy, even among with the local NGOs, even with the private sector actors. So AI-based like systems that can just, you know, analyze your request, refer you to the relevant facility. Can we move to next one, please? Yeah. So before I complete my presentation, I also would like to mention the challenges that we faced while we are building local capacity. Of course, the main challenge is to find a person with certain relevant qualifications that we can invest and build upon these qualifications. It's not just for challenge for partner, but also challenge for international organizations too, including United Nations, UNHCR, UNICEF, all of them. It's really hard to find a person to work with. Since the individuals with potentials work in private sector does not have a tendency to apply humanitarian jobs, I can say, but after a couple of years, this is what we experienced in the Syrian refugee crisis. This trend will change significantly due to increased awareness about humanitarian project management. Second of all, I think budget and relevant means stuff for your organization and partners also can be considered as a second challenge. This is also, as I said, like in the beginning, overlooked by a partner organization since they value support staff as logistics, logs and finance more for project implementation. That's why I think it should be clearly mentioned in the kickoff meetings with the implementing partners, not the face with like, you know, further challenging about the data management. I think third one is about like how well partners adapt themselves to the meal system, whether it's like a conventional or non-conventional. Well, it's like about definitely for based on experience for non-conventional systems, it takes like 2 to 3 months for local partners to adapt themselves to conventional systems, and for non-conventional ones, it takes more than 6 months. Of course, that is dependent on the capacity of the relevant staff too. In addition to that, like this is also relevant with how many hours you dedicated with your sessions with local partner staff and what is their availability, also another question to be replied due to other pressing tasks in the field, especially the sometimes physical realities of the war zones also like avoid to conduct this kind of activities, let's say. Well, the fourth one is about like whether we should integrate conventional and non-conventional ones or hybrid systems maybe. I think like that's also really important, like, but also depends on many different like independent variables, I can say. For example, like here we operate in the middle of the European Union. And this for everyone, every single organization, whether it's ING or United Nations, it's their first time to respond kind of crisis in their history, I can say. So that's why, for example, since we operate in the EU has a very strict general data protection regulations. So it's really hard to share data without preparing data share agreement, which has to be aligned with the EU data protection rules. So you train your partners, build the database systems. It doesn't matter whether COBOL or ComCare, and that's like controlled by them. But the issue is that even like we face with questions like whether the physical servers of these data collection tools locate in EU or somewhere else, US or somewhere else. This is also another question. Is like now it's a very live discussion. People are discussing basically, even if we have like the data sharing agreements, so should we still continue to share? Also, like I think the last example that I can give as a as I said like before, the sometimes physical realities of the war zones, avoid to conduct these activities, trainings, also even for like the, let's say, the basic satisfaction surveys, because like people are in a hurry in the war zones, or try to cross the borders. And imagine you're as a meal professional in there and try to basically train people or conduct like, let's say, simple monitoring visit. So That's also another challenge that we face. Finally, I mean, we can, of course, add more challenges to the list, but I only put here the ones which I noticed during my experience, both in basically regarding Syrian refugee response and the Ukrainian refugee response. So that's all from my side. If you have any questions, I would be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Emra, thank you very, very much. So yes, now, please, if anyone has any specific questions for Emra, opening up the floor and just opening up the floor here in general, because for the remainder of this session, we're just going to use the time to do Q&A. So any questions at all, please have them coming in. And if you can, perhaps raise your hand, and I'll try to moderate this the best that I can. Questions, comments, thoughts, anybody? Okay. Okay, Frank, I'll have you go first.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. I wanted to ask Emra, how do you prioritize the support that you give? I know that you used some assessment tools, but could you speak a little bit more about how you set the priorities for the support to local institutions within the HuMEL framework?
Yeah, thank you. I think it's a very good question, Frank. Thank you very much. So basically, of course, like basically in the, before the, let's say after the kickoff meetings with them, basically if they have a relevant HuMEL person, because sometimes they don't. So let's say they just say, okay, this is our dedicated person who has no idea sometimes what is even the M means, what E means, right? So we just sat with that person, imagine, like, which is okay. I mean, this is the nature of our job. We just sat with this person, of course, like to use this Excel-based, like the assessments, and then see, of course, there are different parts about the data management, data analysis, visualization, or like the, let's say, as like the Carlos mentioned, like the establishing the M&E frameworks. There are many questions in there. Now, these are the ones that I remember. And then based on this assessment, of course, after that, like I also talk with that person, basically, what is the intention of that person really? Do you want to be like a HuMEL professional? This is, I think, a really important question to ask, because sometimes these people are just like, you know, let's say someone from someone with logistic experience or someone with, let's say, a little bit programmatic experience. So sometimes they just say, okay, now we just want to learn about basics, about the, you know, the conventional HuMEL tools. And then we continue, you know, based our activities, our sessions, our plans based on their request, actually. Because like if you, especially in the emergency context, in the war zones law, if you are not that interested in let's say, to learn about like digital systems, all of the tools that our colleagues just mentioned before me. So we just don't do it, honestly. Yeah, that's how we approach.
Great, thanks, Emra. Susanna, you had a question?
Yeah, I have a question again regarding the sustainability of using intelligent solutions, as you have mentioned several times, for instance, ComCare. If the partners use these applications, I imagine they do it then with your licenses, as you cannot provide them their own licenses through the project. So how is it then about the sustainability for these organizations if they cannot use it, let's say, beyond the implementation?
So Emra, Carlos, Cynthia, Welton, if any of you have any experience of that, please, you know, speak to your experience.
I can go. Well, as I said, basically we have to adapt, right, to the reality of each of the programs. For example, Conquer is very useful, but it's for more a lot of it needs it's a little bit more expensive. It needs a lot of training to build up and to manage it. So I think the internal process of the local organizations is going to ask what are their needs, and we have to present them the pros and cons of using different tools, right? But we have to be very aware of the realities, like to present them the solutions. For example, I would think, and maybe Welton can talk a little bit on how has been the process in Conquer, but we also have the experience that we thought that Comper will fit with a local partner, and maybe we push it a little bit, but right now they're just go back with Kobo because we did a bad reading of the reality, right? So as I said, we on MIL, we have a lot of tools, but we have to work a lot with the finance area of our TAs, right? So we have to build up not only the MIL part, that sometimes it's a lot of technical one. They have to work also with their finance part of the organization to really understand if they are going to afford an expensive license for many years. If they are not having some MIL tech that can even programming a little bit, maybe let's build for them a very good Excel for them, right? Sometimes we have to work with that. Yeah. I don't know, maybe because Brazil has been very proficient now in Conquer.
Great, thank you, Carlos. Michael, you have a question, please go ahead.
Thank you so much, everyone. I just have a question to Emar. Please forgive my name pronunciation. I'm looking at a local organization in, let me take Brazil, and they want to use digitalized systems, and maybe these digitalized systems are networked. They're supposed to be based on a network, and they don't have capacity to have that network. How do you support them?
Do you mean that they don't have internet connection? You mean the network?
They don't. Yes, they don't have internet connection, and the tools maybe are internet connected and all that, and they have to collect data and they have to use to run the tools on that system. So how do you support such organizations?
Yeah, I think so. We work in kind of conditions like before. So I'm sure because for example, Kobo is a good tool for this. Because you can collect data offline. So there's of course, in the settings, you can just open that one, and then after you digitize your tool. So let's say you go to field of and you don't have any internet access. So they just go with their, let's say, tablets or even their phone. It doesn't matter for me, honestly. So, and then basically you can just collect the data. Better with tablet because because a tablet it's storing to its cache. So when you come back to, let's say, the office, even let's say in your office, you don't have internet connection. This is let's say the case. You just you can just upload your data to your, from tablet to your computer. And then based on that Excel, you can do your reporting and analysis. So this is what we did before. Yeah.
Maybe if I may, Michael, to just have a follow-up to you, Emma, and maybe Cynthia. I'm looking at a local organization again that has a number of funding and different reporting templates, different reporting formats. So how do you always harmonize such reporting templates, not to strain these local organizations about the tedious reporting formats we have as people seated in these other offices?
We do have reporting templates based on the donor requirements. I know someone mentioned Comcare earlier on. We thought about it and we realized how expensive it would have been to keep it. So we decided to do Kobo. We use Excel a lot. My IPTTs are done in Excel for some of my projects I work on. other projects. We use Kobo for survey to develop our survey instruments and do our surveys in there. So our templates are basic. I mean, it works for us. We use tools that everybody understands and it's easy to use. So most of the times we develop our templates and we use any templates that the donor may require. I hope this answers your question.
Yes, yes, it does. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great. Please, we still do have a bit of time to answer some questions. So anything you can think of, please.
Mike, I have a question. This is Frank. I can't help but be struck by the difference in the experiences of CRS and Caritas and then IMC in terms of funding and support for these kinds of activities. CRS had its own access to resources. It developed this activity and then it got donor funding to support further implementation of that. Emma, I don't know what kind of support you're getting from your donors, but it sounds like you're operating on more of a tighter budget in providing the support. And I'm wondering, obviously the donors are asking for more local organization support. And what do you need from the donors in return? What do you need to be able to do that work more effectively? What are kind of at that level, looking at your own organization and providing that support to the other organizations, what are the things that you need? I'll ask Emma, and then Carlos and your folks can also chime in.
Yeah, I mean, I think like I hear like there are different types of donors, right? So in the humanitarian world, basically we have institutional donors. We also have like private donors. For private donors, like I can say it's more because you prepare basically the project proposals, and then you put the relevant meal budgets for your institution. But when it comes to, like, say, if you're gonna fund if you're gonna do sub-agreement with someone, basically your hands are like locked basically because the issue is that, let's say, you just put a bulk budget to there when you are gonna do, like, especially for emergency responses. But I think for, let's say, if you we experienced this in different situation, not in here in let's say in Ukrainian response, but before in Syrian refugee response, of course, like we work with the different institutional donors like PRM, of course, in there. So you just also budget, you requested budget from sub partners, right? And then they come with their and then you have a chance to add whatever amount you are requesting for each activity. Let's say for PDMs, if you're gonna do a workshop, or if you're gonna do like buy a software. So I think like it's more, I can say some depends on the of course the donors, whether their budget is also tight or not. That's also important. But I think the let's say if from donor side, if we have more budget for let's say the workshops, that can be good. Like, let's say, for example, here, if somebody lead a workshop in here, let's say with all meal professionals and information management professionals, that would be great, of course. Like, but not just a one-day workshop, right? It should be like at least a one week workshop with like, or let's say just a project like the 3-month project with like just for increasing the capacity, meal capacities of the local organization. This can be like a whole project actually. So yeah.
Right. Well, thank you. Hannah made a great suggestion that we kind of broaden the folks to respond to Cynthia and Welton. Do you have any response to what further support is required?
when we develop our proposals, for example, the YEC program, the Youth Action Emergency Program, which is funded by BHA USAID, where Caritas St. Elise is the prime. This is taken into consideration in our proposal, the monitoring and evaluation component of it. So as the regional program manager, I would have to travel to the other islands to carry out, monitoring and assessment of what they do. So that's already incorporated in there. When we did the volcanic response in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, the meal component was also incorporated in there. So this is how we normally do it, because we know it's part of the intervention, and then we put it implicit in there also. This is how we do it.
Okay,
So
well,
for us, the same thing. I mean, when we are designing some projects, the second things that we care about is the meal context. I mean, to understand the indicators, how we're going to do that, how we're going to present that, and also how to monitoring that. And so we have meeting discussions with CRS team to help us to understand how is possible to do, and also how the donor would like to receive. So we propose something, and then we have also the answer from the donor. Sometimes they exist different indicators, or choose just better ones, or to take off some of them. So I think this is a discussion. The difference for us is because we are normally don't have this kind of things with the old partners from Caritas Brasileiras. I mean, we have a lot of donors from Europe, and they don't have so much complexity and monitoring and indicators. So for us, it's totally different. So we have to learn, and also to explain with the Caritas coordinations from Brazil, how this kind of things is different from the other donors, because for us is a new thing. And I also think the meals, the meal workers are also a new profession. So it's kind of that.
so do you budget for capacity strengthening within those budgets, or is that a separate process?
I don't think it's so separate process, because if we, for example, if you want to give hygiene kits, so we have to think about how we are going to monitor that, and how many people we have to take to make these monitoring things, and also all the things are connected. So for example, when we was thinking about the expansion of Orinoco, because right now we have 5 states, so we think multiple groups from regional teams, and then we explain to the donors how important is that in every state from Brazil to make a new workshops with new things, and also put that in the budget. So we also have a little space in the budget general, and that we have meetings and also seminars and capacities meetings. So right now, for example, we today we have 2 meetings from the meal teams and different states from Brazil. And then the next month, all the people from meal and also the other parts from our project is going to came to Roraima, and then we have 1 week to discussions and understand the indicators and how we're going to do the next year, how we're going to do with the old things that we learned with this project, and also with the meal teams. And also there's another possibility to create new projects, of course, because sometimes we can see different problems that we never have imagined, for example. And then we are, for example, we discovered that we have a bigger problems with wash in different indigenous communities in Amazonia. So we are trying to look for a donor to create something like wash emergency projects in indigenous communities. So we discovered that with meal teams, that because we receive feedbacks and also the interview when we have the research, we discovered that there is no how can I say that, safe water in a lot of countries, a lot of places here, even in Amazonia, because we have problems with illegal miners. I mean, I think it's that, I don't know the word, but illegal miners who are polluting the water here, for example.
Right. Okay. Well, great. Thank you.
So guys, we are almost at time, but I don't want to miss an important question here. Syrian is asking, how do you adapt the meal framework system to respond to emergency crisis situation? And I know that's a big one, but. And Syrian, if you'd like to, elaborate on that, please do.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Like unlike other development projects, like in case of emergency or crisis situation, it's constantly changing, right, at the ground level. So how do you like adapt the meal system?
I think, hey, Celine, this is Emrah. I think like that should be done by, of course, the situation sometimes is like not day to day, but of course in the especially war zones, in like if you work in the kind of places in kind of emergencies, like of course the situation changes, it affects everything. Let's say you have hospital and you need to reach certain amount of, you need to do certain amount of consultations, or you have targets. It may change like in a night, obviously, because of any airstrike or something. Mm-hmm. But basically we do change like these like the meal activities, or adapt or basically completely change our meal activities, of course in coordination with the donors. This is what we do. Of course they're also definitely aware of what's happening in the field, but this is how we even for the partners, I can say that like because it can change in a night. So basically for, let's say, for this kind of operations. Yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Great. Guys, we're almost at time, and we just have a few points we just want to wrap up with. Frank, we have a local partner survey, and Frank, I was just hoping you could just briefly explain the purpose of this survey and the information we're trying to collect.
Yeah, I think the topic of this meeting is really relevant to a broader initiative that's underway within the IDEAL activity, and that is to engage more and more, as much as possible, representatives from local organizations like the ones that have contributed here. We're really, our first step is always to find these local organizations and reach out and then begin to invite them to our programs, both on the monitoring and evaluation side, but on the other activities that the IDEAL activity manages. And we'd like your all's support if possible. And I know that Mike made an initial plea a few weeks ago requesting you to make contact with local organization representatives and invite them to the session. What we'd like to do is send out a more formal questionnaire and have you identify people that we can then reach out to ourselves. Mike has put the link here in the chat, and we would just be very grateful for your help in reaching local organizations. We want to bring them on to our technical advisory panel so that we are creating content that's more relevant to local organizations. and also have them participate more broadly in the other work that we're doing. So if you have any partners, if you know of anyone that might benefit from interaction with IDEAL, with the M&E team, and with others, I'd just be very grateful if you wouldn't mind clicking on that link. You can put in multiple names, and we will make contact with them and invite them to participate in our activities. So thank you.
Thank you, Frank. So guys, we're right at time, but just really quickly. We've shared 2 links. One is, they're both surveys. One is the local partner survey that Frank was just speaking to. And I also shared a link for the presentation of the evaluation of the event itself. It's very short. If you guys take that, that would really help us out for these future HuMELs. And for everyone asking about the presentations and the recording, we are going to share that out with everyone in the coming weeks. So you will have access to that very soon. So that is it. Thank you everyone for your time. I want to thank all our presenters, guys. This is a great conversation. And thank everyone for attending today. So everyone have a great rest of their day or evening.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.